Today, however, we are talking about Qualtrics survey software. The university has just licensed this software from Qualtrics to be given out, not given out, but to be distributed at a discounted price to people within the University of Missouri. That discounted price is as follows. An individual license is $300. A departmental license is $3,000, and a division-wide license is $5,000. Now, that said, that sounds kind of pricey, but if you're just a grad student and you want to use Qualtrics for research, $300 is not that big of an investment, especially if it's toward your PhD. There is a way to use Qualtrics for free to test it out, so everyone can go on and use Qualtrics and try it out, can start your account, but you are limited to one active survey and 250 respondents. So if you need more than one survey, that becomes difficult. If you need more than 250 respondents, that becomes difficult as well. However, for free, you're able to go in and use the functions of Qualtrics to practice, to see if it's the right tool for you. And I'd recommend you do that. Go in and use the free tool, and then if you decide you need the paid tool, you can do that through, or you can get that license through the Assessment Resource Center. We also call it ARC here on campus. arc.missouri.edu would give you access to that licensing options. So that said, let's jump right into Qualtrics here. I need to when you're in your web browser, and any web browser would work, we're going to point our UL at missouri.qualtrics.com. And it takes you to the Shibboleth screen. That's just a login screen so that you can use your username and password, your Mizzou username and password, to log in to the Qualtrics lab. It takes a moment. And this is the Qualtrics home screen. So let's talk about this screen for just a moment. Actually, I need to back up. We need to talk about how to write. I need to spend a moment on how to write good survey questions. Because if your assessment tool is poor quality, then the data that it returns will also be poor quality. So when thinking about great survey questions, think about these 7 things. 1, it needs to be simple as possible. 2, it needs to be specific. We want to remove any ambiguity that we possibly can. 3, it needs to be individual. Only ask one question at a time. And what I mean by that are a question like, what are your thoughts and concerns about yesterday's football game, for example? That would be a dual question. A thought and a concern could be two different things. You also might say, what do you like or dislike about the football game? And in which case you would break that up into 2 questions as well. So you want each question to only be asking one specific thing and not more than one. The 4th is it should be exhaustive, meaning you need to provide every possible answer choice, or at least an other where they can write something in. Because if their answer doesn't jive with your answer choices, that lessens the quality of your data because they can't answer as truly as they would. 5, you need to allow for optional questions, especially with sensitive information. Any demographic information, asking for gender, that kind of thing. You need to allow those to be optional, and I will tell you in Qualtrics there's a way to remove those from your end analysis as well. 6, the question needs to be neutral, avoid loaded or leading information. So asking a question of, how about that awesome offense from our football team on Saturday, would be a leading question because you put the awesome adjective in there, leading them toward a positive response. The final thing is you want a balanced question. You want an equal number of negative and positive choices. So a Likert scale, like 1 to 5, it's also Likert, it's choice of how you want to pronounce it. A 1 to 5 scale will be strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, so that there are an equal number of positive and negative choices, and that there is a neutral option as well. Thinking about those things before you ever even start will help you build the best tool you can in Qualtrics. So first, let's navigate the workspace a bit. This is the administration page. This is where you can see all of your different surveys. There's a message center. You can view results. We'll get to that. Distribution, we'll get to that as well. Create new surveys. You can also work with your surveys. You can see I have several of them down here. For a few minutes, I just want to go through the survey question possibilities. And to do that, I'm going to open up a survey that I have already created. So we have lots of them. This is just a single answer multiple choice. As you can see, after every one, I've put what type of question it is here. Single answer multiple choice, text entry. We're going to unlock this. I've used this survey previously, and so when you design the survey, it's considered closed, meaning no one can respond to it. Once you open the survey and send it out, they lock the survey because editing the survey questions will obviously invalidate your survey results. If I asked the question, do you like pepperoni pizza? And everyone says no, and then I go in and I change the survey results to, do you like sausage pizza? Then everyone still responded no, but we've changed the question. So you want to build your survey incomplete before you disperse it, and once you disperse it, editing it could definitely invalidate those survey results. So I want to make you aware of that as well. The next one, a matrix table, right? So we can say multiple questions, multiple answers. You could put that same thing on a slider. What percentage of people do you think know how to drive correctly? This was a funny, joking survey, so it should not be taken seriously. Right, but you can move them on a slider. You can rank order. This is another form of a matrix question. A constant sum question where you could round up to 100. Pick group and rank. Right, we have gap analysis. I like this question a lot because it allows you to ask for more specific information based on criteria they put in. Meaning, right, I have these smiley faces in here. If you like the trainer, yes, but if you dislike the trainer, what's the reason that you dislike the trainer? Again, this is a silly survey, not for real data. But it allows you to, if you get responses that aren't preferential, like disagreeable responses, you can use this question type to ask more why. And then these are two metadata questions. We'll go more into each of these in a minute. But these are two metadata questions that can record the browser information, so it will record the browser that they use to take it. And then you can also put in a metadata question that says the time they took to take it. You can also add a question that shows that where they attach a file. So if they need to attach a resume, or if they need to attach a worksheet of arithmetic problems or something like that, you can attach a file there as well. So that's just a very quick overview of some of the kinds of questions that we work with. With each question, once it's created, you have this navigation here on the right that you can use to change the possibilities of the question. So if you would say multiple choice, male, female, this is a sensitive question. So we may want to change our multiple choice to 3. And we might say, I prefer to skip this question. And it's just that easy to edit a question. So let's go back out and we'll try creating one from scratch just to show you a few things that we can do when we build from scratch. So I'm going to create a new survey. And when you're building a survey, this is nice. I'm going to create from scratch using the Quick Survey Builder. But if you're altering a survey that you have out there already, you can create from a copy. That's great because you don't have to reinvent the wheel on a survey that you've already created. You can also use the survey library, and you have your own library, and you also have a global library. and lots of categories and whatnot you can use to have a template survey. I am very OCD about my information, and I prefer to start from scratch, but you can see that there are test libraries here. So if you're going in and want to know the different kinds of questions that are possible in Qualtrics, you can certainly use their library as well. So that's creating from a survey library or from a copy, but I'm going to start from scratch, the Quick Survey Builder, and we're going to call this Webinar Survey 1. And then you can actually put this in various folders, but I haven't created any folders in my Qualtrics account. So if you create folders, then you can store your surveys on your different topics in those different folders. So we'll say, I'm creating a survey now, or creating a folder here now by typing webinar. It takes a moment, and now we are into Webinar Survey 1. So questions come singly, or they can come in blocks. So you can put blocks of related questions together, which is nice because then they can be saved in blocks and stored in blocks and reused in blocks. So you can bring a block from a previous survey into this survey and not have to recreate the wheel. So let's create a block of demographic information. How about? We're going to create a new question here. It starts with a multiple choice question, but we could say, how about a text entry question? And not only text entry, there's even more. So after every submenu, there's a sub-submenu to change the settings of each individual question type. Do I want a single line, multi-line, a password, essay, or form? Well, form looks good because I can fill out, in addition to name, I can get email address as well. So we'll say form. And so in choice 1, I just simply click on choice 1 and put name. Choice 2, oh, and now look at what has happened. This is another beauty of Qualtrics. It has lists of information that goes together often. So once I typed name, it said, I think you want address information, and it automatically dropped in those form fields for my address. Now over here at the right, you can see I can take off the number of fields, or I can take off the address preview by clicking off of here. Or I can reverse the order. I can remove or add form fields for as many as I want. And we'll go back and put in address. Okay, so that's my first question. That gets all demographic information. Now again, depending on the, not all, it gets their location, geographical, demographical information. You want to be careful. Sometimes you don't want this information in here. Sometimes you don't want their name in there. This webinar doesn't have enough time to cover all of the positive and negatives of how to create good surveys. I can see a question in the chat window. How says, how many surveys can I create and keep in my account? If you have a paid account, I believe it is up to 25 active surveys, but I'm not positive of that. I do know the free account only allows 1, and I do know that I've yet to see anyone who hit the limit of different surveys with their paid account. So I hope that answers your question. So we have one question in here, and we decided it was a text entry question in a form manner. Great. So now, in this same question block, let's create a new question. And we might say, what is your age? And here we'll say 0 to 18. We'll say 19 to 55, and then 56 plus. Okay, so I could add more choices in here if I wanted to. If I wanted it in 10-year sections, I can say I want more choices or fewer choices. I can also, in my multiple choice selection, I can decide different multiple choices. And one of the things I love about Qualtrics is that when you hover over your choice type, it gives you a pop-up of what that choice type is going to look like. So we can have a select box, a select box that you can select multiples, a drop-down list, single answer horizontal. So I have mine currently, if you can see over here, this is single answer vertical, but I could quickly say single answer horizontal and it changes it while keeping the information. I can go back in here and change again, single answer horizontal graphic. So if I wanted to put a picture of a small person, a medium-aged person, and an old person in there, I could do that. Single answer vertical graphic, right? And then we just keep moving down. Multiple answer allows you to check multiple boxes. And you can do vertical, horizontal, graphic, or no graphic. That's just multiple choice. That shows you the various opportunities there in multiple choice. So that question's done. We'll create a new question. What is your gender? And again, it's going to predict, when I put gender in there, it's going to predict that I want male, female, but I would also add a choice to this and say, I prefer to skip this question. Okay? So maybe that's all the information we want in that block. We don't need any other information, but the nice thing about this then is we can collapse. So by block, you can collapse questions, lock them in, you can randomize them within the block, you can loop and merge, you can change the order of the blocks, you can copy the block to the library. I like this one. Once I get a nice block of questions set, I'll save it to my library and then I can reuse it. I can copy individual questions, or I can delete the block. And that's this block of questions here. And we could call this, you can even change the name of it to call it demographic information. So that's my first block. Now down here I can either create a question, copy an item from my library, or I can, over here you see how add block. So we'll create a new question, and now this one might be, random info 1. And we'll start to create a new question. Actually, I'm going to change this to, you'll find out that we're a bunch of nerds here in the training, sci-fi questions. Okay? And so we may want to, you see it puts in here as a multiple choice question, but we can very easily change this. So let's change this to, how about a matrix table? And so we'll write the question text and we'll say, what is your opinion of the following Star Wars movies? And yes, I know Star Wars is sci-fantasy, not sci-fiction, or is fantasy fiction. I know all of these things. Okay, so let's say A New Hope. And we'll say The Force Awakens. And we might say Empire Strikes Back. Then I can also change my scale points. I can say dislike, neutral, and then it changed me to 2 scale points, and I want to add 1 because I need to have an even number of, for a balanced question, I need to have an even number of negative and positive, so I'll say like. Now if I needed that to be true 5-point Likert, I could add more scale points up here. I could change it to a bipolar instead of a Likert. I could say multiple answer instead of single answer, so that you could say, but that wouldn't make much sense in this question because you can't be dislike and be neutral about The Force Awakens. You must only dislike The Force Awakens, and you must only like The Empire Strikes Back. So I wouldn't make these multiple choice. I'd make them single answer. I could make them drop-down list if I wanted to. You can see here. Or drag and drop as well, where I could put Force Awakens into dislike. New Hope then would move into like. Empire Strikes Back. It doesn't have the functionality of it now because I'm still in building mode. So I'm going to say back to single answer. And we'll create yet another question. I'm just trying to show you as many of the different question types as I can with what little time we have. There's no way I can possibly go by all of them, but I will certainly do my best. We could pick a heat map here where we have to put a graphic to use. And it allows me to insert a graphic. Right, now this is no longer sci-fi questions here, so we might have to change this back to random questions. And then you can say, this is called a heat map, and this allows the user to click on a part of an image. So if you wanted someone to find the femur bone in a picture of a skeleton, you could do that via heat map. Which is your favorite bite of the bacon? Right? And then they can click anywhere they want to on here, or I can add regions on here. So let's go over here to the nav. I can say one click if I want only one selection, or if I want them to allow up to 3 clicks, I could do that as well. Now I need to add the regions. And when you add a region, you want to make sure you're exhaustive. Right? So it depends on how many regions you want. We could put region 1 there. And we could put region 2 here. Right? But you want to make sure your regions cover your entire image to ensure that the picture is exhaustively covered. And so we'll say this goes for the rest of it here. This is, again, these are silly questions, and I would probably alter them to make them more credible if I was actually going to send this out. So that's a heat map. And now you can click on any one of those 3 regions and receive information data back from that heat map. How about another new question? What other choices do we have here? How about a constant sum? I like constant sum. And we can say how much time do you spend? And then it's nice in a constant sum, you should say total must equal 100. You can make that whatever you want. And you can say sleeping, working, playing, and let's add even a 4th one down here just to show how easy it is, eating. That bacon's making me hungry. All right, and then in this constant sum, there are draggable bars, horizontal graphics where you just put in a number, horizontal text, vertical graphics. I like these draggable bars though. I think that they're fun. And then you should say bars. You could say choices if you wanted to, bars or sliders. So let's leave it on a slider. And then the validation type must total 100. If you leave validation type on none, they could put that they spend 100% of their time doing each one, which equals 300%, which is not possible. But in saying the word percent, I also realize that my question is very vague given the answer possibilities I'm giving them. So instead of how much time, I'm going to say what percentage of time do you spend? Total must equal 100. So that gives them, it's much more specific. That way there's no nebulous properties in it. You know, it's what percentage of time that I'm spending, not just how much time. Do they mean 100 minutes? Do they mean 100 hours? So this changes it to be a clear-cut question. And I'm just going to do a couple more question types, and then I'll show you about distributing and looking at the results. A graphic slider is one where you could change the graphic based on the slider so that you could put in something like that. I like gap analysis. How about this one here? What is of the so and then I'll say of the options, well, which is your favorite restaurant? And here I'll say Murray's. Here I'll say Addison's. These are all local Columbia, Missouri restaurants. And here I'll say G and D pizza, because everyone knows there's a G and D pizza and a G and D steak. Well, if we're going to be local about Columbia, I need to do one more, right? Mugs Up. Well, now I'm getting requests from my peanut gallery that says Shakespeare's need to be in here too. Okay. So in my gap analysis, I can choose negatives or positives. So you can either choose to ask for more information on the negative or the positive. So we'll leave it on the negative here. And we can change this, why not? And then you can change your title here, food, price, location. And you can even change the number of answers here if you want more. And then you can, each one gives you the opportunity to change each of these options, but you can also copy and paste to each one as well. And all I'm doing is copying my first one and pasting it into my others. Again, if you have any questions along the way, please post them in the chat pod. I am trying to watch the chat pod as we do this. And so then there's a question, and then what happens is if you decide you didn't like something, I can pursue even more. Okay, how? We'll try and answer your questions. How many surveys can you create and store in your account? As I said before, I believe it is at least 25 with a paid account. I know it is only 1 with a free account. Can you export the survey results into Excel, Access, or SQL? Absolutely. I'm going to try and do that here at the end. Can you create a survey in your language of Chinese? I don't know if that's a great question, How, and I don't know if that's able to or not. That would be a question that you should take up with the Assessment Resource Center. Worst case scenario, you could do graphics of the words and do it that way. That would be a workaround. That would be the first thing that I thought of. Is question logic created in supporting a more interactive survey? And it absolutely is. How I don't have ability to get to question logic in this webinar, but there is such a thing. I'll touch on it ever so lightly, and if you're interested in it, please come take our Qualtrics class over in Division of IT Training, and we would be able to show you how to add that question logic in there. I can try and add one question here. Let's see here. We'll add one up here under age. So under age, we can add skip logic, right? So we can add skip logic if 0, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a question. So between questions 2 and 3, I'm going to say, what is your favorite adult beverage? Right, and we might say beer, wine, mixed drinks, mixed drinks, and then we would also need to add an other because that is not an exhaustive list. So favorite adult beverage, I would need to change this to 0 to 20. We change this to 21 to 55 so that we're not breaking any local laws here. And so now we have what is your age and what is your favorite adult beverage. Now, if their age is 0 to 20, this theoretically becomes a moot point because they won't have sampled any of these adult beverages yet. So what we would do is we would add what they call skip logic. You'll see here display and skip logic. Skip logic is better for skipping a single question. Display logic is better for displaying questions based on an answer. So here we're going to say skip logic. I'm going to add skip logic to question 2 that says if 0 to 20, you see all my selections are there, if 0 to 20 is selected, then skip to what is your gender, right? Because we wouldn't then ask them what is your favorite adult beverage because they're not old enough to legally consume adult beverages. So we would add a skip logic in there to skip. And display logic is the same theory coming at it from the other angle of display this question if this certain thing is employed rather than skip this question. So that is, and we get a lot more into that in our in-person class, but that is the skip and display logic. Okay, so we have multiple blocks here, 2 blocks in fact, and I'm going to, now I've showed you pretty much how to add questions. So there are some more advanced things, branching, validation, all of those will come in our advanced class, which we're going to start offering in winter semester, now spring semester 2016. In early January will be the first advanced class, which we'll talk about some of those. But I have this survey here, and now let's preview it. So when I preview the survey, it comes up in a new field here, and it shows what pages are on, what goes on what page. All right. And you can see how it's going to look. And then we can close that and come back to our actual survey. So that's a way to preview it. We can change the look and feel here by going in. University of Missouri has different skins, but we just use the standard University of Missouri skin. If this, now I should bring up a big caveat here. If you are doing any kind of personal research whatsoever, you should not use the University of Missouri skin. You should use the Qualtrics skins, because that doesn't link your data to the University of Missouri. Obviously, this silly survey I would not send out under the University of Missouri branding. So if you are doing it officially for your department, then you can use the Missouri logo and branding. Any questions regarding which logo and branding you should use should be taken to the Assessment Resource Center. And at this time, I'll also tell you that they have a wonderful crew of people to help you build great assessments. So if you want to build an assessment in Qualtrics and you want to make sure that it's of the highest caliber, they have a research team there that will help you build your assessment. So you need not go it on your own. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. So we can change, I'll change to the Qualtrics light skin, and I'll change my button text. We'll say no progress bar. We'll say with text progress bar, questions per page 1. So there's only one question. And we click on save. Now when I preview the survey, now when I preview it, you'll see I have the Qualtrics brand and I have my progress bar, so I can change the look and feel very easily, and that just opens in a new window, so I can preview that as often as I want. So let's look at the survey options. Lots of them. Do you want to allow a back button? That's important. It's good to allow a back button, especially the only way I wouldn't is if it's a graded quiz type of a thing, or you don't want them to be able to go back and change their answers. Save and continue allows them to do it in multiple sessions. Show question numbers, pretty self-explanatory. You can also say by invitation or open access, so you can protect it. You can password protect it so that you can have so you can send it open access, so they click a link and enter it. You can send it by invitation only, so that they must receive a survey link in their email to take it. You can password protect it, so that you can make it an open link, but someone must have a password in order to take it. And so that's a way to get it out to a number of people who might not be within the university that you can, or if you don't know their email address. So you could put up a survey, and then in class you could say the password for this survey is bacon. And so they put in bacon, and then they can take the survey. Prevent ballot box stuffing means each IP address only gets to take it one time. Survey expiration says that after a certain date, when they click on the link or try to take the survey, it'll say, I'm sorry, this survey has expired. You can have a default end of survey message or custom. You can redirect to a full URL, so once they're done taking the test, you can direct them to your departmental page. You can add an additional thank you email, so when they click on send, an email from your library is auto-sent to that recipient telling them thank you for taking the survey. How long before partial completion? So if I start it today, how long do I have to finish it? Do I have a week, a month, a year, a day? I can put in partial completion. There, these are all just the survey options. Survey flow we get into more in our advanced classes and in our actual class. This talks about, it just shows the questions in blocks and lets you reorder them so that you can pick the best flow. Spell check, that's self-explanatory. Preview survey, and once you're completely done with it, you launch the survey, and that just means it locks the survey and allows you to start distributing it. I can't currently distribute this survey because it is not open. It is still in editable mode. So before I launch this, I may want to send this out pardon me. Before I launch this, I may want to send this out to my colleagues so that we can collaborate on this. So in which case I would go back to my surveys here at my surveys tab. And I have webinar survey 1 here, the one I've been working on. There I go to edit it. No results yet. If I want to send it to someone by email, that's not to collaborate, that's to take the survey. I can send it that way, although I'll show a better way in a moment. You can view it, which is a preview. Or this button here, collaborate, allows usernames, email, so I could say scottrm@missouri.edu. This is Riata, and actually that should be tied to our global Outlook. And I can add why am I having trouble adding here? If I use the user in group and we say Scott Riata, first name maybe? There we go. We could add selected. So that's just one way to, then when I click on save, that person is going to get a link that they can go in and collaborate on this survey as well. That means edit the back end of the survey, not take the survey. Okay, so now I've created the survey, I have it double checked, I've previewed it, I've sent it off to Riata for collaboration. We are ready to start launching this survey. Well, the first thing we need to do is to go into the survey and launch it here under the launch button. There's no way to distribute the survey until you've launched the survey. So we'll launch it. And then to activate, you can either click the green button here or you can click this button here, but it's really telling you that you're not going to get any respondents until you start activating it. So we will activate the webinar survey. And so now what we have here is an anonymous survey link. So I could copy this link and put it anywhere on the web. Someone could click on it and complete my survey. Now that means they could also click on it 10 times and complete my survey 10 times unless I have clicked the prevent ballot stuffing box under my survey options. However, that still doesn't restrict them. If a user decided they were going to ballot stuff it via an anonymous link, they could go to different computers on campus, which all had different IP addresses, and complete the survey each time. It just prevents them, ballot stuffing just prevents them from completing the survey from the same computer twice. So if I wanted to send out an anonymous link, I'm done. I can copy this email and start it into a survey. If, however, I wanted to send it to a specific number of people, we would go up here to the Panels tab. Panels are people. And you can add different panels to have different respondents. So if you have, I'm trying to think of an academic part here, you're the College of Education, and you send one survey to your undergrad, to your underclassmen, and another survey to your upperclassmen, or to those who have already been in internships. You can create different panels of users here. So I could create a new panel and call this webinar panel, put it in a folder if I wanted to. We can import from a file, which means it would be a comma separated values file, a CSV file. And that would allow you to import it from an Excel spreadsheet. So you could get an Excel spreadsheet ready, turn it into a CSV, and then put it in via that way for large batches. Or panel members here, I can say email scottrm@missouri.edu, call this Riata, and Scott wolversonm@missouri.edu. This is Mel Wolverson, right? Stone DG@missouri.edu. This is David Stone, right? So I'm creating a panel here. I can even add metadata to each respondent so that I can use that in my analytics, and I can bring that in via panel member. So I could say, up here we could say, if I wanted to choose college, we might choose education, pre-med, English. I have that turned around, if anything. Mel is our English person. And I can add external data in there as well. And I can use that then in my end analytics, which is a really, really valuable tool. So if you want to put in your students, you can put in their grades, and then you can not only break out your entire class, but you can break out your class by freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, or what language they speak. So there are lots of abilities here to add embedded data to your user panel, and I love that. So we get a panel created. We call it webinar panel, and here it is. And so now I can go to survey, to webinar survey, and so you can add and distribute your surveys via panels here on the Distribute Survey tab. We should be able to. This will not track identifying information, so you can try the survey mailer, which is if you want to track identifying information, use the survey mailer, which allows you to select email addresses or panels. So I can go in here and select the entire panel, send in 1 hour, send now. In 1 hour is nice because that allows you to do the whole thing and gives you a few minutes respite in case you realize you made an error. You can send the message. You can put the subject, please complete this. You can change the from address, so no reply at qemailserver.com is not going to allow them to reply to this message. But if I wanted to put my email address in here so they could reply, oh, here, it's already in there. Never mind. I jumped ahead of myself. My reply to email, if they click on reply to, that's the email it's going to get. And you could say, please complete this survey because you are obligated to, or you're my friend and I want you to, or whatever you'd like to do there. And so then down here you have a link to the survey, and don't affect this info here. This is all coded info that will put an individualized survey link in their email, which allows you to track their responses via the email link you sent out. So that's how you would do that. That's how you can distribute it to an entire panel. You can distribute it to certain people within the panel. Or you can also just email the survey to a regular person as well, just by putting in an email address right here. And just like we did before, without creating a panel. You could create a panel. When you create the new email address, it defaults to a new panel that is the panel for this survey. Yes, the in-person class, Mr. or Mrs. Hancock, T. Hancock, I'm going to cover results. I'm just running a few minutes late, but I'm going to go ahead and run up to the 1 o'clock hour and covering results. But a more detailed analysis could certainly be had by taking our class. So let's move on to that right now. I don't have any responses for webinar survey 1. I have to go back here and look at something that has responses. Qualtrics class survey. Here, Silly Sally super survey. No, let's go here. Qualtrics class survey. And then let's view results. And here are the results that I had. So I can either view in the aggregate, I can view reports, which gives you its own by question aggregate terms. How many said male, how many said female. So like I said here, I can go again by responses, or I can download data. This is almost my default. I want it, if I'm going to be looking at data, I know how to process data in Excel or some other program, so I would just download the data coming later. So you can, in CSV files, you can download it for SPSS, you can download it for fixed field text, XML, HTML. So this is a way to get it out so that you can then use it in your own data. We can also, there's a reporting tab here. That can show you some different information associated with your data. I don't use this one again as much. This talks about end data survey reporting, but usually once I take it out of Qualtrics and into Excel or SPSS, then that's where the rest of my data analysis goes. So the true joy of Qualtrics is the ability to send someone a survey. It's that thing that we used to be able to do in Microsoft Access that for whatever reason we still can't figure out they took away from Access 2013. The ability to email someone a form, have them fill out that form, hit send, and have that form feed a table in your Qualtrics account. So that makes it very easy then to get the data, pull it down to Excel, and be able to do actual work on it. So remember the individual license. There's a free license. Anyone can log on, have one active survey, and up to 250 respondents. If you buy the individual license at $300, that allows you more than one active survey. I've kept saying 25, but I think it's even more than that. I know it's at least 25. And unlimited responses. And then the division-wide and site-wide are 3,000 and 5,000. No, department and division, pardon me. Department 3,000, division 5,000, and those offer the same responses and number of surveys as a paid account does. I do not know if journalism already has a departmental site license. That's something you could call ARC and find out, or you could probably call your department office and find out. It would seem to me like it would behoove the journalism department to have one, but I'm not sure, Marty, so I apologize for that. Are there any other questions about Qualtrics? We're coming up on 1 o'clock, and so I have to end this webinar. I do want to point you to training.missouri.edu. It's where you can log in to sign up for our actual Qualtrics class. It's the full 3.5-hour class where we go into, you'll actually build your own evaluation, and we'll do a little bit of skip logic and display logic, and we get more into each question type and the building of each question type. So again, if you have any questions, she said, feel free to come in on Friday mornings from 9 until noon in room 25 of Arts and Sciences. We do an open lab. We 4 trainers sit and wait for you to come in, and I'd be happy to consult with you on a Friday morning between 9 and noon about your needs as well. If your needs become too complex, I'll refer you over to the Assessment Resource Center, but I'm more than happy on any Friday morning 9 to noon to come in and talk with you about Qualtrics and how it might be able to meet your needs. So I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes and answer any other questions that come into the chat pod, but otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you in a future IT training class.